Picture this, bank lobby, Tuesday afternoon, auditor walks in with a clipboard and points at the camera in the corner. She asks the security manager one question. What kind of control is that camera? He says, easy, it's a detective control. She writes something down. Then she asks, in what category? He hesitates. He says, technical. She circles something, wrong answer. That camera is physical. It's bolted to a wall. It's got a wire running out the back. The thing it produces, a recording, is detective. The thing it is, a box on a wall, is physical. He just failed the easiest question on the audit because he forgot the one rule that runs through the entire Security Plus exam. Every control wears two hats. Today we are at the foundation of Domain 1. Objective 1.1 Security Controls, the thing the exam will test you on more often than any other concept in Domain 1. Here's the rule. Every security control has a category and a type. The category tells you where the control lives or who implements it. The type tells you what the control does functionally. Two axes, completely independent. A firewall is technical and preventive. A security guard is physical and operational and deterrent and detective and sometimes preventive. 6 labels for one human being. The exam will hand you a scenario and ask what category, then it will hand you another scenario and ask what type. And the trap question, the one that separates the people who pass from the people who retake, is the one that asks for both at the same time. You cannot guess your way through this. You have to think in both dimensions every single time. The whole objective is built around getting comfortable with that dual lens. Think of it like a tag system. Every control gets one category tag and one or more type tags. Read the question, identify which axis is being asked, answer with the matching tags. And the security camera is the canonical example for a reason. Every Security Plus instructor uses it. The camera is a single physical object. It bolts onto a wall. It has cables. It draws power. Physical category, no debate. But functionally, what does it do? Depends on who's looking. If the bad guy sees it before he tries anything, the camera deters. If he tries anything anyway, the camera detects. So one device, 3 labels, physical, detective, deterrent. The exam will hand you the camera question in some form 3 or 4 times during your 85-question test, dressed up differently each time. Get the camera right and a chunk of the exam falls into place. Let's walk the 4 categories. First, technical controls. These are anything implemented by a computer, firewalls, encryption, MFA, IDS, IPS, access control lists, antivirus. If a piece of software or hardware is doing the work, it's technical. The exam loves technical because it's the easiest category to spell out. If the question describes a box on a network, a piece of code, an algorithm, or a protocol, you are in technical. Don't overthink it. The keyword cluster, software, hardware, encryption, authentication system, network device. All of those drop you into technical. Second, managerial controls. These live in documents and meetings, security policies, risk assessments, audits, background checks, awareness training programs. If you can't touch it and a computer isn't running it, it's probably managerial. The classic exam scenario, the CISO writes a policy that says all employees must complete annual security training. That is not technical. There's no software involved in the policy itself. It's a management decision written down. Managerial. Another one, the risk assessment that ranks every asset on the network and assigns it an owner. That entire document is a managerial control. The reviews and audits performed by the internal audit team. Managerial. The procurement process that screens vendors before signing a contract. Managerial. Third, operational controls. These are people executing procedures. Security guards on patrol. The change management procedure being followed by the on-call engineer. Incident response running through its playbook. Separation of duties enforced by your HR team. The line between managerial and operational is the line between writing the rule and following the rule. The policy that says we will respond to incidents within 30 minutes, that's managerial. The actual on-call engineer picking up the page at 3 a.m. and starting triage, that's operational. Same rule, different category depending on whether you're writing it or doing it. Standard operating procedures, SOPs, bridge the two. The SOP document is managerial. The act of executing the SOP is operational. The exam will test that distinction by asking you which category the procedure falls into based on what the scenario is doing, writing it or following it. Fourth, physical controls. Anything tangible that protects physical access. Locks, fences, bollards, cameras, badge readers, man-traps, lighting. If you can stub your toe on it, it's physical. And here is where new test takers get burnt. Physical does not mean low-tech. A badge reader is electronic, but the thing it's protecting is a door, so the badge reader is physical. The encryption inside the badge reader is technical. Same device, two different lenses depending on what part of it you're describing. The exam will absolutely set this trap. The fix: when you see a control that has both a digital and a physical element, ask yourself which side the question is testing. If it's about controlling physical access to a building, the answer is physical. If it's about authenticating to a network resource, the answer is technical. Now flip to the other axis. Types. There are 6 of them, and I'm going to rank them by how often they show up in exam questions. Number 1, preventive. Number 2, detective. Number 3, deterrent. Number 4, corrective. Number 5, compensating. Number 6, directive. If you only had time to memorize 2, it would be preventive and detective, because the exam writers love asking you to tell them apart. The next pair to memorize is preventive and deterrent. That one is its own classic trap. Preventive controls actually stop the attack. The firewall blocks the packet. The lock keeps the door shut. MFA refuses the login. The bollard absorbs the truck. The control physically interrupts the bad thing. Encryption is preventive. It stops unauthorized reading even if the data is stolen. ACLs are preventive. They refuse access at the network or file system layer. Deterrent controls discourage the attacker, but don't physically stop them. The warning sign that says area under 24-hour surveillance. The visible guard at the front desk. Lighting on the back of the building. Guard dogs. The attacker could ignore all 3 of those and still get in, but they probably won't try. The fence is a great example of why both types matter. A 6-foot fence prevents a casual person from walking through. The signs on the fence deter the determined ones. Same fence, 2 types stacked on the same control. Detective controls discover that an attack happened during it or after. IDS alerting on a malicious payload. The SIEM correlating failed logins across servers. Audit logs, cameras recording, file integrity monitoring tools like Tripwire. Detective controls don't fix anything, they just tell you. And the canonical exam trap: IDS is detective, IPS is preventive. One letter, one different word in the acronym, completely different control type. The S in IPS stands for system, but functionally think of it as the S that means stop. Memorize that pair cold. The exam will burn you twice on the same distinction if you don't get it locked in. Corrective controls fix things after the incident, restoring data from backup after ransomware. Patching the vulnerability that got exploited, re-imaging a compromised laptop, running the incident response playbook through to recovery. Corrective is recovery. The keyword on the exam: after the incident. Compensating controls, and this is a favorite exam trap, are alternate controls used when the primary one cannot be implemented. The hospital with the legacy MRI machine that runs Windows XP and cannot be patched. They cannot do the right thing, patching, so they compensate. Network segmentation around it, enhanced monitoring, restricted ports. None of those are as good as patching, but together they fill the gap. If the question contains the phrase cannot be patched, legacy system, or workaround, the answer is compensating. Last one, directive. Directive controls instruct or mandate behavior. Acceptable use policies. HIPAA, GDPR, the training mandate. Directive is purely behavioral. It tells humans what they must do. If the scenario hands you a regulation or a written policy that demands a behavior, that's directive. Now here's where the exam gets nasty. Every real-world control wears multiple hats. Take the camera. Physical category, it's a box on a wall. Detective type, it records the incident. Deterrent type, if the bad guy sees it, he might walk away. One control, 3 labels. Take the security guard, physical and operational at the same time because she's a person executing a procedure. Deterrent because of her presence. Detective because she observes, sometimes preventive because she physically tackles the intruder. One guard, four labels, take the audit log. Technical category because software writes it. Detective type because it captures what happened, take defense. Physical and preventive and deterrent. The exam writers love these multi-hat controls because every wrong answer can sound right if you don't pin down which axis you're answering on. Always read the question twice. Is it asking for category, type, or both? Let's run a few scenarios. A hospital cannot patch a critical legacy medical device because the vendor is out of business and replacing the device costs $400,000. They put it on a segmented VLAN with enhanced monitoring and an explicit allow list of source IPs. What kind of control is the segmentation? Not preventive in the textbook sense. It's compensating. They cannot do the right thing, so they compensate. The keyword that flagged it cannot patch. Next scenario, a company requires every new hire to sign an acceptable use policy on day one. What kind of control is that? Directive. It's mandating behavior through a signed document. Not preventive, they can still violate it. Not detective. Signing it doesn't reveal anything. Directive because the control's whole job is to instruct behavior. Two more. After a ransomware attack, the IT team restores production data from clean backups. What kind of control is the backup restore? Corrective. The damage is done. They're recovering. And finally, a security guard patrols the parking lot every 2 hours. What category and type? Category, physical and operational at the same time. Type, deterrent because his presence discourages bad behavior, and detective because he observes and reports. If you only said deterrent, you missed half the answer. Always think in both dimensions. One more for good measure. The SOC analyst notices a brute force attempt against the VPN concentrator from a foreign IP. The IPS blocks the source automatically, and the SIEM generates an alert. Two controls, two answers. The IPS is technical and preventive. The SIEM alert is technical and detective. Same incident, two completely different control labels. Run a stack of harder ones. MFA applied to remote VPN access. Technical category, preventive type. Background check on a contractor before granting them a badge. Managerial category, preventive type. The badge they receive is physical and preventive. The annual security awareness training that trains them not to click on phishing links, managerial when designed and operational when delivered, preventive type. The CCTV camera over the loading dock, physical, detective, and deterrent. The barbed wire on top of the perimeter fence, physical, deterrent, and preventive. The HVAC system that keeps the server room at 68 degrees, physical, preventive because it prevents heat damage to availability. The tabletop incident response exercise the team runs every quarter. Managerial when the runbook is reviewed, operational when the exercise is executed. 6 different controls, 6 different combinations of categories and types. The patterns repeat. Train your eye to spot them. Anyone who has ever sat through a SOC 2 audit knows the auditor will absolutely pick the most ambiguous control in your environment and ask you to label it. The visitor sign-in sheet at the front desk, the annual penetration test, the HVAC system that controls server room temperature. They want to see if you can think on both axes at once. The visitor sign-in sheet is physical and detective. It captures who entered. The penetration test is technical and operational and detective. It's a process executed by people that uses tools to find what's already there. The HVAC system, when discussed as a security control, is physical and preventive. It prevents heat damage to availability. The exam draws from the same well of ambiguous real-world controls. Get comfortable with the both-axis mindset, and the trick questions stop being tricks. One more wrinkle worth flagging. The exam loves to test compensating controls in the legacy system scenario, but compensating shows up anywhere. The primary control is unavailable. The cloud workload that cannot run a host-based agent because the platform forbids it. The team compensates with network-level monitoring. The contractor who cannot be issued a corporate phone for MFA. The team compensates by restricting their access to a hardened jump box, accessible only from a specific IP. The SCADA controller that cannot be patched without taking the plant offline. The team compensates with strict network segmentation and behavioral monitoring. The keyword stays the same, cannot. Whenever the question describes something that cannot be done the right way, compensating is your answer. Here is what goes into your exam runbook. 1. Every control has a category: technical, managerial, operational, or physical, and a type: preventive, deterrent, detective, corrective, compensating, or directive. Always answer both. 2. IDS equals detective. IPS equals preventive. DS equals stop. Do not ever flip those. 3. Compensating controls show up when the question contains the phrase cannot be implemented, legacy, or workaround. 4. Directive controls are the policies, regulations, and signed agreements that mandate human behavior. 5. Corrective is post-incident, patches, restores, reimages. 6. The visible camera is physical, detective, and deterrent. 3 labels for 1 box. 7. Managerial lives in documents, operational lives in people. The same training program is managerial when written and operational when delivered. 8. Defense is physical and preventive and deterrent. 3 labels for 1 chain link. 9. Bollards are physical and preventive. They specifically stop vehicles. 10. Audit logs are technical and detective. Encryption is technical and preventive. 11. Watch for the word cannot. It almost always means compensating. 12. MFA is technical and preventive. Background checks are managerial and preventive. Badge readers are physical and preventive, sometimes technical, depending on the question framing. Next up, Objective 1.2, Fundamental Security Concepts. The CIA triad, AAA, Zero Trust, Man Traps, Honeypots, and the framework that ties every control we just covered into a coherent reason for existing. If 1.1 was the toolbox, 1.2 is the blueprint. We figure out which property each control protects: confidentiality, integrity, or availability, and why every breach in the news this year violated at least one of them in the first 90 seconds. See you there.